I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch Network, and this is a breaking news alert. We are now learning that within the past few weeks, another lawyer for Donald Trump, this time Christina Bobb, testified before the criminal grand jury in Washington, D.C., currently investigating Donald Trump's crimes, specifically the criminal grand jury investigating Donald Trump's theft of thousands of government records, including the highest classified records that exist in the United States, secret compartmented information that could only be viewed in secret compartmented information facilities. This breaking news comes after our previous report on the MeidasTouch Network that another Trump lawyer, Evan Corcoran, testified before the same criminal grand jury in the past month as well. Now, Corcoran and Christina Bobb are very important to the criminal investigation, as both were interfacing directly with the FBI and the Department of Justice, leading to the search warrant that was ultimately executed at Mar-a-Lago on August 8th of 2022. And they are still in some capacity working for Donald Trump in a capacity as a lawyer. With Christina Bobb, we'll put an asterisk there because it's not really clear what it is she does or doesn't do. But she's important for a reason I'll talk about in a minute. But both are integral in Trump's inner circle and integral in the criminal investigation of Donald Trump, specifically as it relates to obstruction of justice, as both were involved in consistently lying on behalf of Donald Trump to the Department of Justice and to the FBI that all of the classified records that Donald Trump had stolen were returned to the Department of Justice and FBI when that just wasn't the case. Evan Corcoran started making those representations and has really been the lead for Donald Trump in handling these stolen documents. And so he was involved even back in late 2021 and early 2022, when Donald Trump returned 15 boxes of records that he stole back to the government in January of 2022. Those boxes contained about 200 classified records, including sensitive compartmented information. Corcoran was involved in coordinating that turnover of those records with the Department of Justice, with the FBI, more specifically here with the National Archives. And then when the matter was referred to the Department of Justice and the FBI, Corcoran continued to basically delay until the Department of Justice and tell the FBI that the records had been turned over and that they have everything to go away. You know, that Donald Trump was considering invoking executive privilege, even though he doesn't have the ability to do that after the fact. But no assertion of executive privilege was ever actually made in the correspondence with the Department of Justice and the FBI. And then Christina Bobb was kind of set up. She's an idiot. Well, you'll see for a second, objectively an idiot. And that's why she was basically used, and she's, okay being used, but as a pawn by Corcoran and Donald Trump to to lie to the Department of Justice in June of 2022 that all of the records were turned over. Remember, Christina Bobb is the one who signed the declaration to the Department of Justice. She signed an attestation that, quote, a diligent search had been completed at Mar-a-Lago, and that as of June of 2022, when she turned over this folder that included about 20 other classified records, that all of the records had been returned. Classified records, all government records, and that after a, quote, diligent search, no other records exist at Mar-a-Lago. The one thing that she added, because she was told to say that by Evan Corcoran, and she had not searched the premises herself. So just think about that. She's signing an attestation saying a diligent search was made of the premises upon information provided to her, and she never even searched Mar-a-Lago herself to then make that attestation to the FBI and to the top counterintelligence official at the Department of Justice. The one thing that Christina Bobb added in the attestation was, this is based on the information provided to me, and the information provided to her was provided by Evan Corcoran, who the information provided by was by Donald Trump. It's obvious that no diligent search was ever made at Mar-a-Lago. Now, before Christina Bobb met or testified under penalty of perjury before the grand jury last month, what we're now learning, we previously reported here that on 2 occasions she had actually met with the FBI and met with the DOJ as they wanted to question her before grand jury testimony, and this occurred in 2022, about her attestation that was clearly false. How do we know it's clearly false? Well, she said upon a diligent search, all documents in Mar-a-Lago have been turned over. Well, a search warrant was executed on Mar-a-Lago on August 8th of 2022. And what happened? They being the Department of Justice and the FBI, immediately found thousands of records that Donald Trump had concealed and hid at Mar-a-Lago in direct contradiction to what's stated in what we now know is a perjurious declaration signed by Christina Bobb, including there was classified, top secret classified information, again, still being concealed at Mar-a-Lago at the time of the attestation. So Christina Bobb is in significant criminal jeopardy. I mean, I think it's obvious that she is a co-conspirator in obstruction. I could see Christina Bobb very easily being charged. Same thing with Evan Corcoran. I think Evan Corcoran is right in the line of judicial fire, and he's someone who can be charged for obstruction. Corcoran may argue, well, I did this in my capacity as a lawyer, so attorney-client privilege, but the attorney-client privilege, first off, the privilege is held by the client. And even if Donald Trump asserts attorney-client privilege, there's what's called a crime fraud exception to it, where if the lawyer and the client are engaged in criminal conduct together, you can't shield documents and claim that they're confidential under attorney-client privilege. Remember, that's how the January 6th committee was able to get those text messages and emails from John Eastman showing that Eastman and Trump were aware that their claims of election fraud were fraudulent and that they were just making this up to try to delay the counting of the electoral votes. And we also know from those emails that were turned over from Eastman that Trump was signing, again, a perjurious declaration in Georgia proceedings attesting to fraud that Trump and his lawyers all knew to be completely false. So that's with Corcoran. Now, Christina Bobb, I don't even think she has any privilege claim that she can make, because while she was moonlighting on one of these right-wing extremist propaganda networks, I think called Right Side Trump Propaganda Network or something, whatever. So on the side, she acts like she's a reporter and she follows Donald Trump around during when he does these bizarre fascist rallies. And she's like the commentator there. And she talks about it. So she would, one, have waived attorney-client privilege because she's talking about it in public, or Trump's technically the holder of the privilege, but she's putting that out to the public. So I don't think there could be a claim that that's confidential information. And number two, she claims that she's not Trump's lawyer, but that she was signing the declaration as Trump's custodian of records. I'm sure the FBI's got this footage, but here, let's play this video footage of Christina Bobb at one of these right-wing fascist rallies that Trump held over in 2022, when she talks about that she's actually not the lawyer, she's the custodian of records. Play the clip.
You did a lot with, you were there at Mar-a-Lago on the FBI raid. I know there's a lot of stuff that you can't say publicly. There's stuff you have said publicly. But can you you said a lot publicly. You've been on a lot of news outlets.
Yeah.
What is the latest with that? I mean, if people are just if people dropped out of that, cycle of news, what is the latest on that?
I mean, it's going through the courts, right? They've appointed a special master. They're going through the courts. The legal team is fighting that battle in court about who they got the special master appointed and then whether they were
for Donald Trump. This is her and Laura Ingraham, where Laura Ingraham basically says, well, you were there in court for Donald Trump in connection with the search warrant executed at Mar-a-Lago. And if your position was that you wanted the entire FBI affidavit in connection with the search warrant to be public, and the government was making certain redactions, why didn't you object to that if you wanted the document not to be redacted? Here, play this clip of Ingraham on Fox asking Bobb, what are you doing? Here, play this clip.
Very interesting and somewhat encouraging that you had parties from both sides of the aisle, of course, liberal media outlets coupled with a conservative watchdog group, really together on the same side. And so we were curious to see how that played out. Of course, reserving our rights to try something else in the future if we want to, but we really just chose to see how it would play out.
Well, I understand that you chose to do that, but I'm wondering, are you not concerned that because you didn't join any of these motions for, again, the full release of this affidavit, that you're then waiving possible objections to the way redactions are being done by the Justice Department later on? Because you didn't speak in court today, nor did you join any of these motions. They're going to redact all this stuff, and I'm not sure what grounds you're going to have at this point, having waived your right to file those motions.
Well, we would maintain that we haven't waived our right, and that still is maintained. We need to wait and see. I can't be certain at this point because we haven't seen the affidavit, and we certainly haven't seen the redactions and how it's going to play out. But we'll be making that decision as it comes out. We got to see it. We haven't seen it. It has been under seal, so. I don't know. We can't say.
And finally, here's a clip of Christina Bobb where she's asked by Ingraham if Trump was keeping nuclear secrets. I'm sure this is a question that she's going to be asked by the Department of Justice before the grand jury. Like, was he keeping nuclear secrets? This was her response on Fox when Ingraham asked the question. Play the clip.
Okay, so Christina, just so I'm clear about this, I want to be really clear. Is it your understanding that there were not documents related to our nuclear capabilities or nuclear issues that had national security implications in the president's possession when the agents showed up at Mar-a-Lago?
That's correct. I don't believe they were, and if they thought they were...
Do you know for a fact? Do you know for a fact they were? Have you spoken to the president about it?
I have not specifically spoken to the president about what nuclear materials may or may not have been in there. I do not believe there were any in there. The legal team had done a very thorough search and had turned over. We'd been very cooperative with the Biden administration and the DOJ and turned over everything that we found that we had. So it's my understanding on very good belief based on a thorough investigation that there was nothing there.
So, folks, we've got Christina Bobb testifying before the grand jury, Evan Corcoran, another Trump lawyer, testifying before the grand jury. We are also aware that Alina Habba may not have gone before the grand jury yet, but was questioned by the Department of Justice back in December. And we know of a host of other subpoenas that have been flying out, including to former Vice President Mike Pence. Jack Smith isn't playing around, folks. He's playing for keeps, and he's making sure that he protects our democracy, and he's fighting for justice right here, quietly in a disciplined fashion. I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch Network. Hit the subscribe button. We're on our way to 1 million subscribers thanks to your support. Please hit the subscribe button now. In addition to subscribing here, check us out at patreon.com/MeidasTouch. Get the exclusive content that you can only get on Patreon, patreon.com/MeidasTouch. But most importantly, it helps grow this independent media platform. Also, check out Killing County on Hulu. Talks about the crime, corruption, and cover-up that's going on in Bakersfield. That's Killing County on Hulu. Until next time, I'm Ben Meiselas.
The best part of waking up? MAGA Tears in my cup. Check out the new MAGA Tears mug available now at store.MeidasTouch.com. That's store.MeidasTouch.com. It's 100% union made right here in the USA. I know I'm not tired of winning yet. How about you? Get yours today.